Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Cobern, and today's episode is the top 5 best defensive ends in the 2018 NFL Draft Class based on analytics. And the 3 main metrics we're going to be using today, or analytics if you want to call it that, are production metrics, age metrics, and athleticism metrics, specifically their speed score. Now, when it comes to production metrics, we're going to be doing market share production in a way that most people don't. Everybody's familiar with receiving yardage market share production or total offensive market share production, but not a lot of people are very familiar when it comes to defensive market share production. But it's very, very simple to understand. When it comes to defensive market share, what you do is you take an individual defensive statistic. So say a defensive end had 40 solo tackles in a season, and you divide it by the team's total solo tackles that year. So if a player had 40 solo tackles and the team had 400 solo tackles, then that player would have 10% solo tackle market share. You take that number, you compare it to every single defensive end since the 1989 NFL Draft Class, and boom, you have a statistical model, at least to see what the similarities were between high-profile players at that position over the last 20 plus seasons. We're going to be looking at the solo tackle market share, the sack market share, which is the same concept just applied to sacks, and the tackle for loss market share. The age metric is simply taking their age on draft day and comparing it to every single defensive end since the 1999 NFL Draft Class. And then the speed score is a metric that takes the 40-yard dash for their mass density, which is basically their size, and comparing that to all of their peers since the 1999 NFL Draft Class. The speed score is mainly formulated from NFLDraftScout.com. They usually report the 40-yard dashes early. Now, these aren't 100% accurate. The actual 40-yard dash is going to be used in the final report, if you will, on them, or at least the final profile on them will be from either their combine or their pro day. But I always find it useful in the very beginning to get these preliminary 40-yard dashes out of the way, because usually they're fairly accurate. They're usually within a margin of error at times when it comes to their actual 40 time. So that's why I kind of like to use the speed scores right now compared to later, just as a reference. You know, this is what it was now and this is what it was in the future. So with all those 3 things out of the way, let's get to the list. At number 5, we have Porter Gustin, edge out of USC. When it comes to height and weight, he is 6'4", 260 pounds with a 4'8", 40-yard dash according to NFLDraftScout.com. Based on his production, he scored a 94.27 solo tackle market share score, 59.29 sack score, and 82.57 tackle for loss score. The only production score that he doesn't do too well in is the sack score, but that can definitely improve this year. But why he is on this list at number 5 is just because of his overall size. Has decent production already in terms of his solo tackle and TFL market share. And when it comes to his speed score, he scored a 53.69 overall speed score. That isn't amazing by any stretch of the imagination. It doesn't exactly, it's close to hitting the Pro Bowl threshold for speed, but not exactly there. Gustin will be a guy that will be interesting to see how he develops this year, what he does at the combine. But the bottom line is that he was productive at a level to bring notice to him. And his overall profile is very strong, at least for a guy that could potentially be like a Derek Barnett-like player, potentially based on his production. He just needs to improve that sack score. But if he does, he could rise a lot higher on this list based on his overall profile. At number 4, we have James Cobern, defensive end / edge from Idaho. When it comes to height and weight, he is 6'2", 280 pounds with a 4'8", 40-yard dash. Based on his production, he scored 62.39 out of 100 in terms of solo tackle market share, 84.06 when it comes to sack market share, and 71.56 when it comes to tackle for loss market share. He misses the All-Pro marks when it comes to solo tackle and tackle for loss market share, But overall, he's a very solid profile. Based on his size, I mean, the big thing that helps him out a lot is that he's 280 pounds. If that actually turns out to be true, that's actually a big advantage for him. But so far, very good overall production from that sort of area. And when it comes to his speed score, he scored a 79.65 overall speed score, which is very impressive. A lot of that is because of the fact that he's 6'2", 280 pounds, but it's still impressive nevertheless. He'll probably likely more be a starter level edge guy than anything else. And he doesn't necessarily have the strongest profile ever to where if a guy gets hot somewhere that he'll get bumped. I mean, I expect Coleman possibly to get bumped by another guy next season. But at least right now, based on his overall profile of production and speed traits, he is number 4 on this list because of that combination. At number 3, we have Joe Ostman, defensive end out of Central Michigan. Based on his height and weight, he is 6'3", 250 pounds with a 4'8", 940, according to NFLDraftScout.com. Based on his production, he scored 89.91 out of 100 in terms of solo tackle market share, 98.74 when it comes to sack market share, and 84.75 when it comes to tackle for loss market share. All those marks are excellent. He's probably one of the most productive defensive ends in this draft class, with the only main issue being his speed score. Only had a 20.15 overall speed score, and that's mainly due because he's 6'3", 250 with a 4'8", 940. He's again another guy that probably will be taken over by somebody else as the season starts and when the season ends. There's going to be some breakout candidates out there that break out this year, and they'll probably take Ostman's place. But for right now, based on what he's accomplished on paper, he's number 3 on this list because of that combination of production, which is very good, and having just a general decent overall size and profile. He may just end up being a starter. This isn't a guy that, based on his profile, is like a future All-Pro or Pro Bowl guy, but he has a very solid overall profile, and that is why he's number 3 on this list. At number 2, we have Bradley Chubb, defensive end out of North Carolina State. When it comes to height and weight, he is 6'3", 275 pounds with a 4'8", 440, according to NFLDraftScout.com. Based on his production, he scored 79.24 out of 100 in terms of solo tackle market share, 77.29 out of 100 when it comes to sack market share, and 95.07 when it comes to tackle for loss market share. All those marks are good except for the solo tackle and sack market share production that they mostly hit Pro Bowl level solo tackle and sack market share. That's the thing that he could improve this year, though. He could improve his solo tackle marks. He could improve his sack marks. And when it comes to his speed score of 72.69 out of 100, that hits at least the All-Pro threshold when it comes to speed for his size. Chubb is going to be a very interesting sort of player this year. I was a fan of him on tape last year before he decided to stay in school another year, and I think there's a lot of Pernell McPhee-like traits to him, if you will. There's a lot of that to his game. You know, he's kind of a big, chunky kind of guy that can get around offensive tackles fairly well. Very nimble guy for his size. But I'm very excited to see what he does this year, and he's number 2 in this list because of that combination of production and speed. And there are some players who could get above him potentially because it's not exactly the most solid profile ever, but at least he has enough traits when it comes to production and speed as of right now to be considered the number 2 best pass rusher in the 2018 class. At number 1, we have Harold Landry, defensive end / edge out of Boston College. Based on height and weight, he is 6'2", 250 pounds with a 4.76 40-yard dash. Based on his production, he scored 80.05 out of 100 in terms of solo tackle market share, 84.29 out of 100 when it comes to sack market share, and 79.36 when it comes to tackle for loss market share. He pretty much hits all the thresholds when it comes to All-Pro production marks. It's the bare minimum, though, in most cases of those thresholds, but at least it hits those thresholds. He could become much more productive this year, though, as well. So there's lots of positives here when it comes to his production profile. Based on his speed score, he only had a 58.77 overall speed score, which at least hits the Pro Bowl threshold when it comes to speed. I'm going to be very interested to see what happens with Harold Landry. I was a fan of him on film as well from last year. Looked a little thin, 6'2", 250 pounds is decent size, but it would be great if he was like 260 or put on 10 more pounds of muscle, or just got a little bit bigger to kind of hold up a little bit better on the edge. But overall, very solid profile, very good production marks, and a decent speed score. And he's number one on this list because of that combination. He's not someone that I necessarily would consider like a top 10 pick or a top 20 pick, but based on his production, based on his speed, he just hits all the marks right now that everybody else hasn't hit, and that is why he's number one on this list. This concludes the top 5 best pass rushers or edge rushers in the 2018 NFL Draft Class based on analytics. My name is James Cobern. You can find my work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well if you get a chance. And I will talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.